Welcome to a brand new episode of Undisputed Anime. Here we are with another brand episode. I don't know where I was going with that intro there.
It's definitely a brand new episode.
It's definitely a brand new episode. This is the podcast where we like to give you recommendations and our top picks and sometimes reviews like this episode, which is a banger because we are going to talk about Dragon Ball Super Superheroes, a movie that just came out here in the UK and most probably wherever you are in the world. By the way, I'm Zane Taicho, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Susu Day. How are you, good sir?
Hello, this is my name. I'm well. As you know, I'm tired because it was my wife's birthday yesterday, and with all that entails, I had a really busy day yesterday. So
Absolutely. No, that's fair. I guess it's probably fair to say like we missed an episode because of shenanigans. Like you went on holiday. I actually had a special guest lined up, but they couldn't join at the last minute. So sadly we missed our slot. But it's okay. We're here now.
How dare I go on holiday? How dare I take some time away?
Oh, see how it all falls apart when you're not here.
All falls apart. So don't worry. Me and your other co-host, we're gaming out a new podcast, cutting you out, cutting the middleman out.
He told that story on the podcast this week.
Did he actually?
Yeah. So, for those unaware, I do another podcast called Undisputed Nerds. Feel free to check it out. It's about comic books and movies and such. And he brought up the story of how the two of you have met for the first time.
Yeah, on the way to see the very movie we're about to review.
Absolutely.
It was a bloodbath.
The best way he described it was, that scenario where you're out with your other half and you bump into your ex, and then you have to introduce your ex to, he said it was that same energy. So
that's fantastic. I love that.
Super. Okay, so should we just kind of jump into the review?
Jump into it. Is this a spoiler? Is this a spoiler cast, or are we still keeping?
It is going to be a spoiler cast. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, make sure to pause the podcast, go watch the movie, come back. Welcome back. We're going to talk about, I guess, some specifics. Like I usually like to talk about different areas like the visuals and, just kind of break it down into different segments. So that's cool with you?
Yeah, absolutely. If you wanna pave the way, I'll jump in where I need to.
Perfect. So I guess just before we run through our thoughts and such, it's probably a good idea to just kind of like talk about its performance. Because wow, its performance is ridiculous right now. So much so that it's already beating an Idris Elba movie called Beast, which is like a survive thriller where Idris fights a lion.
A lion. Only Idris.
I mean, the guy's got to do a job, I guess. But I'm just pulling up the figures now. Bear with me, caller. It is insane how well this movie is performing right now. So, here we go. So, Dragon Ball Superhero had a stronger than expected 10.8 million Friday opening day at the US box office, including a 4 million Thursday preview, which we got to see. We saw like an advanced screen and a preview of this, breaking a 23-year-old record as best opening day of all time for a anime movie. And that includes Demon Slayer's 9.5 million and Pokemon the first movie's 10.1 million. Currently, it's projected to hit 21, maybe 26 million, based on its current I can't say that word. Trajectory.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
Trajectory.
How does that make you feel as a fan of the genre and long time watcher reader of Dragon Ball?
I'm psyched by it. I think that it's to be expected though, because regardless of what, because I know that there's a lot of mixed opinions on the movie itself, but I think that largely Dragon Ball Z is an entry point for a lot of people of our generation into anime. Like, it was one of the few shows that was regularly on the cartoon channels that we had access to back then on like cable TV and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that regardless of whether you're up to date on it,
Mhm.
it's the sort of thing that people are inclined to go and see just because it's there.
Yeah.
And like, Dragon Ball Z is like, it's soaked into all aspects of our society now. Like, it gets memed on in all sorts of genres.
Mhm.
And you could say you can make a Dragon Ball Z, like some Dragon Ball Z references in any circle, and people will be like, "Oh, well, I know that that's a Dragon Ball. I don't watch it, but I know that it's that anime with the guy with the crazy hair and stuff."
Yeah, you've probably spot on with something there. Like, it is recognizable for its style, the hair. In the past, I know, some people who aren't familiar with the franchise call it the screaming anime, or,
Yeah, they
something of that
scream and
nature.
their hair gets bigger and they get more muscles. That's the appeal.
I mean, it works. So yeah, it is interesting, and dare I say, it's probably a franchise that's been around for like 30 years as well, hasn't it? Like, Dragon Ball came out
Yeah,
in the 80s, so it's got time on its side in terms of
1984.
wow. So yeah, it's got time on its side in terms of the sheer scope of people who may recognize it and such. But I'm really surprised more than anything that it's a Dragon Ball and not another sort of new age anime, because as we previously mentioned, Demon Slayer was ridiculously successful. Jujutsu Kaisen was really successful as well. So yeah, interesting facts
I
and
think
figures there.
it just goes to show that like the brand, like the brand Dragon Ball has, like, it's got sticking power.
Mm,
Stuff. I'm to be honest. Obviously it's not a movie, but I'm expecting to get a similar sort of response. Maybe not to maybe nowhere near to the same numbers, but I'm expecting the same sort of thing when the new Trigun comes out on Netflix.
okay, yeah. I thought you were going to say One Piece Red then for a second. I was like,
No, no, no. I think that because Trigun is a very, like, obviously going completely off the Dragon Ball topic, but it's like it's
mm,
a very like iconic older anime,
hmm
and it would have been one of those anime that would have been around at the same time, the same sort of like. I think I saw a couple of episodes when I was younger because it was something that occasionally showed up on the media I had access to. So it's
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like, I think that it could possibly have the same effect with people like seeing it and being like, oh, well, I used to watch that when I was little, and like
Yeah,
just jumping in. So
absolutely. I also wonder as well of, is it the decision to kind of make this movie focus on Gohan and Piccolo, because they are two of the fandom, the community's favorite characters,
yeah,
and instead of it being another Goku Vegeta focus story.
yeah, save the world. It turned into, yeah. I think I like, that's what I like, but I will obviously go on to that as we review. But
Absolutely,
do think that maybe you're right there in that, like, maybe the character focus was more interesting to people as well. So
absolutely.
yeah,
Super. So I guess straight off the bat, we normally have a rating scale. If you're new to the podcast, we normally like to rate things either undisputed or disputed, meaning good or bad. Nothing in between. No star ratings. It's either good or bad. Mr. Susu Day, would you say this is undisputed or disputed?
on such a black and white scale, I have to say that it is. I personally think
Mm.
that despite some of the things that we're going to talk about, I still
hmm
say it's undisputed.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I also would say undisputed. And the reason behind that is I think there's some really nice references and callbacks in this movie to just Dragon Ball as a whole. Like, you
Yeah.
know, the opening sequence to this references Dragon Ball with Goku's first
Yeah,
interaction with the
and it's
Red
all
Ribbon
footage,
Army.
isn't it? It's all
Mm,
old footage of those episodes of Goku in like interacting with Red Ribbon.
yeah,
Uh,
and
and then even
prob-
goes into like Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that, doesn't it? It goes into like the whole Android saga and then the Cell saga. Like,
yeah, yeah, and I again, I don't know if this is a creative choice or just the way it's purposely layered, but I really like the idea of that they've animated Dragon Ball and recapped Dragon Ball Z, like the elements that are needed to know to make sense of this movie. And they're all 2D in a 3D CG movie. Like
yeah,
almost like, you know, historically speaking, this is what it used to look like. And do you know what I mean? Like it's a
yeah.
creative
It's like this is what
interpretation.
it was, and now this is what it is.
Now this is what we are. Yeah.
So it was good.
Um,
It was good. It was good to really. It really like it hyped me up at to see that at the very beginning. Like
mm,
definitely.
yeah. A real nice way. Actually, yeah. Now you say that, it's a real nice hype up, isn't it? Because it's not over like transformations or anything. It's just Goku taking out the Red Ribbon Army in a
Goku
basic
being
fashion.
uh like a mad lad as a child.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. What did you think of this? What made it undisputed for you?
So I think that, like you probably,
Mm.
when we left the cinema the other night, I think there was a lot of like umming and ahhing because I wouldn't say it's the best that I've
Hmm.
ever seen, like best Dragon Ball like movie I've ever seen. I think that probably Dragon Ball Super Broly was
Hmm.
probably better and more in line with what I think people expect.
Yeah.
What I think made me think it was undisputed is the moment that I sat down and I thought, this movie is more akin to a really good filler arc.
Interesting. Yeah.
Is I felt like the plot of this movie went, it
Yeah.
felt like it was filler, but good filler. Like it didn't
Hmm.
focus on like the main story because you'd always expect it to be focusing on Goku or Vegeta, or
Hmm.
primarily Goku and
Yeah.
his interactions with Vegeta in a main like plot.
Yeah.
But this felt like a side plot, but it was good. And I think that once I started thinking of it like that, I was like, actually, you know what? It is really good because they if that was their intent, like if
Mm.
they wanted to make this just like a really nice side story, then absolutely, it's great. It's really good. Like I loved how I also loved how kind of like it seemed to be quite self-aware of what it was doing. Like
Mm.
there's obviously a moment where Piccolo first encounters one of the antagonists,
Yeah.
and whenever they're like kind of themed around superheroes, so whenever like they hit Piccolo, we're getting the like classic comic book sound effect written on the screen, and Piccolo
Yes.
acknowledges it. He's like, "Why am I seeing letters every time he gets hit and stuff like that? Like, why am I seeing these words?" And I thought
Yeah.
that was like really like a really like fun little like self awareness of itself. Um, yeah,
No, you're right. It's the whole character driven idea that Gamma 2, I believe it is so kind of focused on being a hero, superhero, and such that I think later on it kind of hints that he has these like hologram projections for when he attacks because he
yeah.
does it later on when he's with Gamma 1 and it pixelates like
Yeah,
it's a
all around
device
him.
that yeah. So that was a really cool thing. There's so many sort of superhero sort of references as well. So one the one that kind of made me giggle a little bit is towards the end of the movie, Krillin jumps out of Bulma's sort of aircraft, the same sort of style as Captain America does in Winter
Yeah.
Soldier. And to me, that's kind of like, again, it makes me giggle because it's like, of all people, Krillin jumps off out the back, without a parachute style,
Krillin,
you
the
know.
policeman.
Yeah, and he has that little goofy helmet on as well. Like,
Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot I think to like, and I think that
mm,
I say this a lot when I'm talking about like my opinions on stuff. I think that, and other people's opinions as well. Like, I
hmm
think when you go into something that is as loved
hmm
as as some franchises are, especially like Dragon Ball, a lot of different comics, a lot of different mangas. When there is like a movie or an adaptation, you kind of go in with an expectation of what it should be,
yeah,
and I think that that can kind of mar your opinion of it. But I
hmm
think that once you can kind of like you can sit down and you think, okay, that's not what this was intended to be. This was
mm,
intended to be something a little bit different.
yeah,
I think that that's when I was like starting. Oh, actually, when I'm thinking like this is actually really good. Like, it's if the movie had been like that and it had been a focus on Goku and Vegeta,
hmm
I probably would have said disputed.
yeah, yeah.
But because they decided to, because of the way the story was written, like I think that that's what made me think it was undisputed on this occasion.
Yeah, and just kind of calling back to something you mentioned before, the aspect of it feeling like a filler, um, for me, it called a lot back to. It felt a lot like the Garlic Junior saga, which is
Yeah,
filler in the anime, because again, it's down to Gohan and Piccolo to save the world when
yeah.
Goku and I can't remember if Vegeta was there or not, but
I don't
they
think
were.
Vegeta was there because Vegeta was still kind of like Vegeta was in his. I'm not a friend yet, but I'm not necessarily a bad guy who's
Yeah.
going to. My primary interest is beating Kakarot. That's where
Mm,
he was at, and he's still
yeah,
there
yeah.
now. But he's like kind of a fiction now. He's like married to Bulma, and he's got like children with her and like a comfortable
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, he's
So
a Z fighter now. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. But yeah, the Garlic Junior saga, which I don't hear a lot of people actually mention nowadays. I really enjoyed it as a kid. I thought it was
yeah.
amazing. But
And it
ob-
was another thing that kind of like it heralded back to Goku's original encounters with Garlic Jr.'s like father and stuff like that. It's kind of
yeah,
like
yeah,
so
yeah,
it was another story like that.
yeah, absolutely. In terms of the visuals, how did you? It's the big conversation point with this movie. How did you find the 3D CG with the movie?
I think it was incredible. I really
Yeah.
liked it. I think when we saw Broly, I was kind of like, it was a very jarring change in the
Mm.
animation because it had gone from traditional to the kind of CG animation very suddenly in the fight
hmm
because they just couldn't keep up anymore. But I think that the cell shaded style lends really well to Dragon Ball Z. In fact,
Yeah.
like just looking at the video games, like all the most recent
Yeah.
video games, they've all had this like really crisp cell shaded style, and it looks amazing. Like it looks really good, and it means that like when the fights do start, the fights felt like kind of like it just kind of felt seamless, and they were able to do a lot more crazy stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's with the with the 3D CG, it allowed them to be dynamic with their camera angles and such, and they could do a wide shot at any sort of given moment and such. So
Yeah,
I think it does lead to more creative and dynamic fights and such. Uh, My only gripe with it, I think you're right, it looks really good at this stage. Um, and I feel like we're in a new sort of era, after having Arcane, there's the new Tekken series that's just come to Netflix as well.
Trigun is going to be in cell shaders as well, so
Trigun will be, yeah. Uh, I think we're entering a new sort of new area, shall we say, new space when it comes to this type of animation, because historically speaking, it's always been a bit jarring, a bit janky.
yeah.
Um, what I'd like to see more of is maybe the fights be a little bit more. I don't know if it's a speed thing, but like I don't know if I feel the fights yet. I don't know how to kind of describe it. The fight with Gohan and Gamma 1, I thought was good, and the sound effects around it were great. I just don't think it's like the first fight with Broly. I'm going to compare it a lot to Super Broly because that was the last movie, but I just don't think it's kind of. I'm like, yeah, I'm in it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I think that a lot of that can come down to just how our like brains and points of views have developed
Yeah.
since then, because if you think about it, like both you and I are like avid gamers and stuff,
Hmm.
so we play a lot of like video games with like really amazing graphics. And I think
Mm.
that like as those things continue to speed up and get better, we're getting it's kind of like the best way I could put it is like, you know, in the beginning of like Dragon Ball series, you'll have a character who comes along and they're like watching a fight and they're like, they're moving so fast, I can't even see it now. But as they get stronger, they can then start watching the fights. They can then start seeing them. I think it's kind
Mm.
of like that in that like our brains are so accustomed to like everything being a certain quality now. I think that it kind of slows things down a bit. I think it
Yeah.
makes, because our brains are much more able to kind of follow what's going on.
Mm.
And I think that
Yeah.
I think that leads into what you were just saying about how it didn't feel quite as like fast and like visceral. It's just that we're
Yeah.
just kind of much more used to processing that information now.
Yeah, I'd love to maybe see like, side by side a 2D animation version of like the same fight because I feel like maybe the pacing was there, and it was the whole idea with that fight is that they're supposed to be match right, but when
Yeah.
it say for example the sparring match with Goku and Vegeta, which I really liked because the whole idea no transformations, no key blast, just a full out brawl. I thought that was really cool. I like the camera angles and such. And I was probably more excited with that fight than the Gohan and Gamma 1. But again, I just don't know if I enjoyed it as much as, say, fights in Super Broly.
So what I said this to our friend as we left. I think that the
Hmm.
reason that the fights didn't have the same amount of impact in this movie compared to the last one is because in the last movie we didn't know what to expect. And when we got to that last fight, it started off 2D, and then all of a sudden it
Mm,
very jarringly shifted into CG once the fight reached a certain scale, and that kind of had this like massive shock factor. Like it had,
yeah.
and so I think that the surprise of that happening was like we went fucking wild. We went absolutely mental when we saw it. We were like looking at each other and like hitting the arms of our like chairs and stuff, like because it like really took us by surprise.
But then it goes
Like
back to 2G, back to 2D as well, doesn't it? Like
yeah,
with the Gogeta stuff, like it does go back. It's not like it then goes
yeah,
3D for
it's
the rest of
constantly
it,
like
isn't it?
shifting
Mm,
in and out of it, wasn't it? Depending on what was going on, and I thought that was really cool. It was really interesting, and I think it was at that point that I was like, yeah, this is what's next for like Dragon Ball Z
mm.
is like is it going into a more cell shaded style because it lends so well to it when it's done right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Just before we wrap up on visuals and everything else, how would you feel if the next series of Super was completely 3D?
I'd be into it. I think it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to like even if they just use some some more elements of CG. Perhaps like
Mm,
they do what they did in Broly, where maybe when it goes into the more high octane fights, they dip
hmm.
it in and out. Because I don't think I don't think that the anime would have the budget to do like how many episodes was like the most recent episode of recent series of Super.
25?
Yeah,
26?
so I feel like like if they I mean if they had the budget to do that, absolutely. Perhaps maybe being in CG would actually reduce costs in a lot of way because they're able to kind of cut time.
I've heard that a lot. Yeah.
Um, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think it'd be really cool to see.
Yeah.
I'm more open to the idea of it now. I think that in the past we've seen some anime adaptations that have been like in CG, but it's like kind of been like older CG. It's not been like
Mm,
as good and as opposed. So I've not been as in love with it. But I
yeah.
think that like with this, like with the CG that you see in like kind of like anime fighting games,
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm really into that. I think that's really cool. And obviously, like you said, Arcane, like that was like incredible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Set a new level, a new
it
precedent.
raised the bar. It really raised the
Yeah.
bar. Like this is and again that's again why I think that like some people liked it and some people don't like it is because like now people are starting to see quality like shows like Arcane where the
Hmm.
quality is like so high. People then expect that for everything.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
So
Interesting. Characters. There's quite a few in here.
mhm.
Should we? I guess Gohan and Piccolo is probably a great point to start with. How did you feel with both those characters being the
So
focus as well?
Piccolo, love
Mm,
Piccolo to bits. I love his journey from being a primary antagonist
hmm.
to Goku's story to him becoming like Gohan's like second father. And
Yeah.
I love the whole relationship between them. And I also love the fact that like Piccolo is obviously still intent on getting stronger. He's still got his ways about him that he's
Hmm.
got his way of life that he likes, and he thinks that like he should always be training and always ready for a threat. But I love the
Mm,
idea that like Pan is coming to his house like
yeah.
after nursery every single day to learn how to fight. And I love that you see this like softer side of him that
Yeah.
you kind of saw like as his journey with Gohan went on that he obviously got a soft spot for Gohan.
Yeah.
Um, so I love seeing more of that. I love the fact that like like that people are like Gohan and Videl are like calling him on his like little phone, and he holds his phone like an old person, and he's like they're asking him to like pick Pan up from like nursery and like we'll get
Mm.
you a plushie and stuff like that. And he's got all these plushes that he doesn't want, but he can. Um, as far as like Gohan's concerned, Gohan has
Hmm.
like been like my favorite character since like early like Z days.
Yeah.
Don't know why, something just like resonates with me there. Um, I love how it's continuing to go along this line of like after the Cell games, he kind of became, or not after Cell games, after the Majin Buu saga, he kind of he went back to doing what his mum always wanted him to do, which was to become a
Hmm.
scholar, to become more educated. And I love the
Yeah.
idea that he's like kind of like so focused on his work, but obviously at the same time he's still stronger than a regular human. So
Yeah.
like he can still do all this like crazy stuff. And what I think I really liked about this movie is it kind of brought back into focus that Gohan is like destined to be this like kind of legendary greatest fighter on Earth. Like
Hmm.
it was talked about in like the Buu saga. That's the reason he was the one who was meant to defeat Majin Buu, but he got arrogant, didn't
Yeah.
he, in his power? Again, like he did in the Cell games, he got arrogant and Goku died as a result.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that. It's something I'm going to bring up a little bit later on. But yeah, it's wow. The whole sort of Piccolo thing I thought was amazing. Um, just different aspects from, like you said, training Pan, which resonates to Piccolo training Gohan when he was younger. The difficulties Pan can't fly kind of resonates with Videl, and Gohan's training Videl to fly and stuff. I thought it was
Yeah,
a great sort of you know, little nod. There's so much like with both of them that it kind of the whole idea. Wow, it sounds terrible, but the whole idea that Gohan doesn't train Pan like Goku never trained Gohan until later on, like the Cell games, is kind of like a weird dynamic, isn't it? Almost like history repeats itself.
yeah,
Gohan's so focused on his research and everything, similar to Goku being so focused and driven on his training. Is a really interesting idea. I know some people like just to kind of compare. I know some people didn't like that with Naruto and Boruto sort of relationship.
yeah,
So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how the community sort of reacts to that. Um, Gohan as the destined fighter and such. Actually, no. Let's look at Piccolo first. Sorry, just before I forget, Piccolo becoming stronger. I really liked and having a whole transformation as well because
yeah,
I remember back during the Frieza saga, you know, on the forums and stuff, people were wondering if Piccolo had a transformation, like a super Namekian, I think was a term used a lot.
Yeah,
And
because I think that there was like there was talk in Namekian lore that there
yeah,
is like a super like fighter for
yeah.
like their race.
And when it came to the whole fusion with him and Nail, I honestly thought like at some point that we would get to see like a transformation. It's weird like it happens now. And if anything, I really like the idea that it came from the dragon
Yeah, it came from
because
Shenron.
yeah, a product of Namekian, I don't know if you want to say culture or Namekian mystic
Magic,
arts or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, I like how it comes back around and it's like, here's something to, you know, here's something a little extra, and then he gets like a new symbol on his gi on the back and stuff, which to represent the dragon. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was really
Yeah,
cool.
it was interesting to see. He was like he obviously had an encounter with Gamma 2, and he was
Hmm.
like, I'm not strong enough, and he was able to kind of admit that he wasn't strong enough. And then once he realized, because he obviously infiltrated the organization, he kind of realized that he would need to be stronger. And his first
Hmm.
thought was, I will ask the dragon to power me to unlock my latent power because Dende can't do it
Yeah,
because he's not old enough.
as
Um,
we learn.
so he goes. I just love the idea that like, and I also love how Shenron regards him because
Yeah,
Shenron still regards him like he's Kami
yeah, yeah,
and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. And he's like, he gives him like special, like it's almost like he gives him preferential treatment because he was the one who originally would have created the Earth Dragon Balls.
yeah, yeah.
So it's kind
And
of like he's like, I've unlocked your latent power, and I've given you a little bit extra. Like,
it's the same with Corin as well. When he goes to pick up the sensu beans, he's like, "Oh, there
yeah,
you go, Kame," and he's like, I'm not Kame anymore."
that's not me. That ain't me.
Yeah, yeah. Um, One sort of subtle difference I will mention, like after seeing, because we saw it subbed, and I saw it again yesterday, but dubbed. Uh, I think the dub version makes Piccolo a lot more warmer. Like he giggles a lot more with Pan, and it's just like little subtle differences in terms of like saying, for example, as we talked about the phone, he says like, "Oh hey, Bulma," like, do you know what I mean? Instead of just
Yeah, it's
saying
a lot more
like
casual.
Bulma,
Bulma.
yeah,
Yeah. Give me
yeah.
the Dragon Balls. Where have you got them, right?
So yeah, I think there's just maybe a little subtle change in terms of Piccolo being a lot warmer, but I don't think it's detriment to the character.
No. I think he's softened as a character over the years.
Mm,
And it's very clear, and that's part of his character. Sorry, that's part of his character arc.
absolutely, absolutely.
So
Um, Something I want to, as I mentioned before, well, more so yourself, Gohan. So we do get a new transformation for Gohan, which we later learned is called Gohan Beast. Um, I noticed with Gohan, once he's in that mode, there was a smirk on his face when Cell Max was charging its final attack. And it wasn't until Piccolo called out to him that he then was like, I got to do the final move. I think that arrogance, like you said, it does peer through. And
yeah,
I think it's an interesting point, isn't it? Because Gohan has like such a bad, he doesn't believe in himself and he much rather pass it on to someone else to do the job, like Piccolo. Like, he even mentions like, isn't Dad and Vegeta around to do it? Do you know what I mean? And then once
yeah,
he is reassured of himself, like once he does have the confidence, he's so overconfident. Like,
yeah. But
yeah.
it always for Gohan especially, it always takes something a little bit extra to push him over his limits. Like
Mm,
in like the Cell games, it was seeing seeing everyone get wailed on by the Cell Juniors,
yeah.
which caused him to awaken his like Super Saiyan level 2 and being like powerful enough to defeat Cell
Hmm.
at that point. In it was, I can't remember what it was in the Majin Buu saga that did it. I think it was just because everyone was like really everyone kind of like really piled it on that, hey, you're meant to be this, like, you're meant to be this strongest fighter. It's prophesized.
Didn't he unlock like ultimate? I want to say the transformation's called like Ultimate Gohan or something, where he
Yeah.
doesn't have Super Saiyan. He has like his dark hair and such.
Yeah. But he's like as strong as as strong as some of the stronger Super Saiyan forms. And then in this film, obviously, like Piccolo's whole plan in this movie is to like he thinks that Gohan's gotten lazy and he should be training more, and he knows that he's like strong enough to defend Earth if if Goku and Vegeta run around. So he's like, this organization wants to kidnap Pan
Yes.
to lure Gohan in. I'm going to go and dress up as one of these guys. I'm going to help them kidnap Pan as an incentive for Gohan to get stronger, to push past his limits. And so he's like there. Pan's perfectly safe with Piccolo, and he's like keeps it like he's like, Pan, can you cry out like you're being hurt? And he like holds her up. He's like got her standing on his hands, but he's like holding her like she's being held up by her like arms. And like that, obviously, every time something like that happens, it pushes Gohan to get stronger. And then it's obviously when Cell Max like seems to have killed Piccolo that he awakens this like beast form.
Yeah. The form looks really cool, by the way. I love the form, and I love those final scenes where Cell Max charging his final final attack. Gohan, oh my god, Gohan using the special beam cannon. Perfect. Oh my god, perfect.
Absolutely, like I completely agree. I feel like it would have had so much less impact if you had just used Kamehameha or something like that.
At first, because I saw the arm above his forehead, I was like, I wonder if it's a Masenko, which is like his first sort of like finisher move.
It's the one where he does like a barrage, isn't it? Like of Masenko is the one where he does that, and it's a beam, isn't it?
Yeah. But special beam cannon, I was like, oh my god, this is like the perfect, simple but perfect execution. Oh yeah, Cell Max, not a big fan. I get it because it's Red Ribbon Army and
going back to the androids and stuff. That was the whole thing, wasn't it? They wanted androids that could do the job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is probably a good opportunity to talk about the Red Ribbon Army. Because obviously, opening up the movie, it shows how the Red Ribbon Army was defeated, but then it goes on to talk about what they did afterwards, and they kind of like they masquerade as like the world's biggest pharmaceutical company to hide their like dealings. And obviously then it talks about how they had Dr. Jiro, and he was obviously like working for the Red Ribbon Army, but he left after Goku defeated them, and he obviously started working on androids 17 and 18, and then Cell. And then he was obviously defeated, and then it talks about like how like his children wanted nothing to do with him, but his grandson, who is Dr. Hido, is a genius. He's even smarter than Dr. Jiro was, but he's kind of like he's got all of these like qualifications, but he doesn't use them. Like he wants to pursue things on his terms. So he does a lot of like kind of illegal things, and he gets put in jail. And then the now leader of the Red Ribbon Army is like, hey, these evil people are trying to destroy the world with aliens. We want you to build us androids so that we can defeat them. So he gets tricked into thinking that Bulma and the Z Fighters are actually the big bad organization. So he creates Gamma 1 and Gamma 2 as these like hero androids to save the day, because he's obsessed with like superheroes.
Yeah.
But there at the same time, Magenta is kind of who is the leader. He's kind of like, I also want you to I want you to resurrect Cell. I want you to make a new Cell.
Yeah. No, you're spot on. Like, I love the Gammas, like both Gamma 1 and 2. Gamma 2 especially because it's such a charming sort of role he has. Like, he's the most playful out of the two and everything else. The dub version, Zeno Robertson, is amazing. Like, you can tell like he had a blast with that. But yeah, it obviously again they're kind of retreading grounds. There's two androids and a cell. You know, we've lived through that before, we've seen it before, but this is a new spin on it, a real nice spin on it, I think.
Yeah,
And you know, the androids help the Z fighters as much as possible to try to take
yeah,
out Cell Max, who sounds like a new iPhone.
yeah.
Um,
I think the reason that I really liked the new androids as well as Dr. Hito is that they're obviously framed as being antagonists, but it's
mm,
through manipulation. Like they genuinely think that they're actually doing the right thing. Like
yeah,
they've only known like the Red Ribbon Army, and the Red Ribbon Army's framed Capsule Corps and the Z Fighters as they're the ones who are the bad guy. They even frame like they're even like talking about like Mr. Saturn. Like they're like, hey,
yes,
these guys are they control the world and we want to stop them. So
mm,
even when they come to fight Piccolo, when they're like when they kidnap even when they kidnap Pan, they're not on board with it.
no,
Like they're like
no,
kind of like we that's not what a hero would do.
mm,
And like even the doctor he's like, you don't need Cellmax. Like Cellmax is unfinished. He's if you awaken him, he's gonna go on a rampage and
yeah,
destroy the earth.
absolutely, absolutely. It was a weird decision to make like Cell, like well, Cell Max, this kaiju level, great ape sized like
Yeah.
version of Cell.
It's also like the worst version of Cell. Like they chose to use Cell's second form as the model for it. And I get that he's the biggest and buffest
yeah,
version of Cell, but like I would have preferred either like the insecty Cell, like the original Cell.
they had it was like the perfect form, except for it wasn't perfect because
Well,
he
perfect
still
form.
had the
Oh, he still had the
thinny.
wings, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
like
Because
he had perfect Cell's like design, but it's like they gave him the like body type of the second version of Cell.
yeah, yeah, yeah. With a red paint job.
Yeah, with a red paint job and no brain, no head
No.
empty, no thoughts. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm on board with you. I'm not sure how I felt about Cell Max. I think that
Mm,
the Gammas were really cool. Honestly, when I heard that Cell was in it when we were watching, I kind of
mm.
thought, is this going to mirror what happened to the other androids? And the Cell in its current form is going to absorb Gamma 1 and
The
Gamma
gammas.
2.
I
Yeah,
thought the
to
same.
become a
Yeah.
stronger form,
Hmm.
which I was a little bit disappointed by because I was like, that would be a perfect mirror to it, especially because 18 was also in the final fight. I was like, that would have been like crazy
Yeah.
for her to see because she was once being sucked up into the tail.
Yeah. And she saw 17 get absorbed as well, didn't she?
Yeah, so
So
like that would have been trauma for her.
yeah. Yeah, it's I guess look, the at the end of the day, it's only there to watch things go boom when it came to Cell Max. So
Yeah,
plus there's a real nice sort of callback. There's two callbacks I really liked with the final fight as well, which is Piccolo holding Cell, which again in my head reminded me of Goku fighting Raditz.
yeah,
Goku had to hold Raditz and Piccolo using special beam cannon.
yeah,
Um, the other sort of callback I liked is when Cell Max catches Piccolo after doing a barrage of like hits on him. He catches him and Piccolo's
oh,
body's
over
limp.
his head like that, doesn't he? Like,
Yeah, a great callback of when Nappa beat up Tien
yeah,
and catches his carcass.
yeah,
So
I remember that. Like, it's like it's like a lot of. It doesn't matter if you don't notice them, but to people who do notice things like that, it's like kind of like, oh, that's really cool because that
a
reminds me of
nice visual like callback. Like you don't
yeah,
need to. You'll be like, this is definitely. I recognize it, sort of thing. So
yeah,
yeah, I really
absolutely.
loved that. Really loved it. Um,
I
last
mean,
little
it'd be
things.
probably worth mentioning Goku and Vegeta are in this film.
Mhm.
They're training with Beerus
Whis.
and yeah, and they've taken Broly there because they
Yes.
want to train Broly to become strong. Goku wants Broly to become stronger without going into his like mindless "I'm gonna destroy
Berserker.
everything" form. Um,
Yeah.
And so they're kind of training there. There's this great, like, Whis says, I want you, Vegeta and Goku, to fight, but you can't use any of your abilities, no different
Mhm.
forms, it's just a fight. So the whole time this movie's going on, they're basically just duking it out while
Yeah.
Broly looks on. Broly's companions, I can't remember their names, it's Limo and Sheila? Or Sheila?
Yes. Yeah.
They've
Chile,
also
yeah.
come. They've also come to Beerus's planet, and like kind of like Limo is just like kind of like being a cool guy. He's like making food and doing dishes, and Beerus obviously loves that.
Yeah.
And apparently Beerus has a thing for Chile, and he
Mm.
lets her stay because he thinks she's cute. Um,
Yes, like many in the Dragon Ball community.
yeah,
So
then
yeah,
we had a
it's a
yeah.
yeah.
Go on.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and then we've obviously got what Bulma's got going on. We find
Yes.
out that she has been ever since the last time the Dragon Balls were used by, I guess it was Frieza, wouldn't it, in the
Hmm.
previous movie? She's
Yep.
been periodically collecting all the Dragon Balls and making very banal wishes. Um, just to make sure that they can't be abused by someone else. So, and we find out that she's been wishing for things like her making her eyelashes longer, or
Yep.
making her ass look younger and like tighter and stuff like that, and like getting rid of wrinkles. But she's been keeping this a secret from Chi Chi
Hmm.
as well, apparently. But yeah,
Yeah.
and she also is obviously in possession of a communication device to Whis because that she was meant to be asking for Goku and Vegeta to come back. But because they were
Yes.
fighting and there was stuff going on, they didn't notice the call.
Yeah.
And they wasted a wish that they could have used to bring Goku and Vegeta back to Earth. And
Absolutely.
and I guess finally, sorry, I'm just going on to. I got 2 final points,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
3 final points even.
Oh,
Pan,
yes.
I love her trajectory because they're obviously in Super trying to kind of take what was good about GT and bring it
Yes.
into the canon. Same
Hmm.
with like Goten and Trunks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we obviously get to see Goten and Trunks as well, and they're older and teenagers, and they think they can do the fusion dance again, and they become fat Gotenks, which
Yeah.
is hilarious. And finally, Krillin does get a badass moment where he gets to use his destruction disc to save his wife,
Hmm.
and he also gets to use what's the move called?
Solar flare.
Solar flare as a clutch move to make sure that like Gohan's attack could hit.
Yeah. Oh, it's Gamma 2 when Gamma
Oh, is
2
it Gamma? Oh, yeah,
sacrificed himself.
yes,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah. He
That was
gets to
cool.
come in and use solar flare. Um, Obviously, he's getting berated by Bulma the whole time because she thinks he's useless now.
Yeah. Um,
That's me. I'm done now. I'm done. I've done my.
no, that's cool. Yeah, great. Some great callbacks there. The solar flare. Oh yeah, it was great to see that. Destructo disc. Krillin saving 18 yet again from Cell.
Yeah,
So yeah, great callbacks and Gotenks as well. I think this is the first, like you said, first time since GT we've seen Goten and Trunks aged up,
yeah.
which is always nice.
It's cool. So it's
Uh,
nice to see how time is passing by because I think the last
mm,
time we saw Pan as well, she was obviously in the first Dragon Ball Super, in the first movie before Super started. She
mhm.
wasn't born yet, and I think she was a baby in the first movie.
Battle of Gods. She's Vidal's pregnant, and then with Resurrection of F, I think I want to say she's like a newborn, like
Yeah, so
a toddler.
it's
Well,
it's
not a
cool to
toddler,
see
but
the
like a
passage
baby.
of time happening.
Mm,
So
definitely, definitely. Yeah, I guess the last thing to talk about is the end credit scene. So, as you mentioned, Goku and Vegeta have this sparring match that we we see the start of, but continues off screen, and then the end credit sequence, we get to see the fallout of the fight, which is Vegeta beats Goku for the first
yeah,
time ever.
Yeah, and it's like it, and I think it's I love that the way this was written.
Mm,
They must know that people wanted to see that fight to its conclusion, and they're
yeah.
like, nope, we're not gonna like mess around with this. This is a fight that Vegeta wins. Like a fight with
Yeah.
no powers. He won in a pure fight of like just like physical
Base
like
form.
combat.
Yeah, yeah. No transformations, no key bass. Plus, I
Yeah.
guess he alluded to earlier in the movie that he was trying to do a new technique that Jiren had, which is,
Yeah.
just try and
Being
stay
able to
calm.
stay like he was working on his mind
Mm,
rather than his body, whereas Goku's very much focusing on just getting stronger. Vegeta's
mhm.
becoming a bit more retrospective, isn't he? He's thinking
Yeah,
about he's I think it's been an interesting swap between them, because I think Goku used to be the one who used to be sometimes thinking a bit more calmly about how we can win fights, and now
hmm
Vegeta has become in that character where he's like, I'm gonna keep losing fights unless I can work on myself.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, it's they're kind of splintering into becoming two different types of fighters. Even though Vegeta's there to be the Lancer to Goku's like hero,
Yeah,
it's a nice kind of idea to go, well, he can still be the Lancer, but we can change this about him so that keeps
yeah,
him fresh, keeps him new, instead of being the guy that does the exact same as the hero but loses.
yeah. That's why I think like this is obviously moving out of the movie and into like the manga currently, but that's why I'm liking what they've given Vegeta an ability that is completely opposite to Ultra
Mm,
Instincts with Ultra Ego, in
yeah.
that they've kind of I think that's their way of acknowledging that Goku is the main character, and
hmm
in a story about heroes, it's the main character who has to win the fight
Yeah.
usually. But they've given Vegeta a move that kind of plays upon the fact that he is the Lancer. He is going to take all this damage. He's going to be the one who kind of like paves the way to kind of get the final hit in the
Yeah.
end. So that's why I think I obviously don't like the lack of eyebrows in the new form, but I do think the Ultra Ego form is pretty very fitting of
mm,
Vegeta as a
abs-
power of god of destruction, whereas
yes.
Goku's obviously using a power that angels use.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
Um, I think that's everything. But we'd love to know what you think of Dragon Ball Super. If you've seen the movie, let us know in the comments down below. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, please give us a star rating. That helps us out in a big bad way. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, like, share, subscribe to the channel. You'll also find in the comment section down below, comment section, description, wherever you're watching or listening to this, you'll find relevant links to other channels, including Undisputed Nerds, my channel, as well as today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. Um, Mr. Susu Day, thank you so much for, letting us know your thoughts, your feelings on this movie. Have you had a good
always a
time
pleasure.
today? Yeah.
Yes, I have. It's always nice. Like I like episodes like this where we are able to kind of watch something and then give like pretty like fresh, like kind of a fresh look into it. Like when
Mm,
my thoughts, because I've obviously been thinking about it the last couple of days.
yeah.
So it's nice to like kind of get in there. Also, great opportunity to hang out in it. So
Oh, there you go. There we go. Love that. So yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Check out all our socials. Again, all will be linked in the description down below. And no doubt we'll catch you on the next one. Bye bye.
peace.